Hey, so we're going to be looking at Tesla in this video. Last time we looked at them was on June 3rd, so about a month ago. At that time, it was trading for 213. We had a buy point marked at 186 with resistance at 213, which is where it was, and 298, based on the fact that I gave it a fair value, which is blue. Uh, and here's the color coding system that we have here. Blue is fair value. The fact that we marked this one blue, I have to imagine the true resistance point was 298. So we'll pick a more firm resistance, make it bold, similar to what we did with Bitcoin above that. Um, and that'll just kind of help us keep track of, where's our actual buy point or resistance point. Some of the notes that we left ourselves were it was in a slight uptrend, which has been taking place for the past 5 months. Again, that was at the beginning of June, so we'll see if it's now 6 months. We also noted that it was consolidating for the past 4 months and to buy the dips. So we'll see if that trend is still in place. We also noted it may have broken the uptrend. Again, we'll look into that. And then just like a news type item was it was noted by Tesla that they were purposely going to see decreases in profit margin in order to gain more market share in this electric vehicle market. And I'm okay with that. I mean, this makes sense. I'm not opposed to that decision. But let's take a look at this. Our the technicals here. Again, we're just going to do the technicals for this video. No news. I'd like to do more news about this because I know there's a lot. Hopefully next video in like August when we check in this, hopefully we can add some insight. So if you have anything that you want to add during this, feel free to do that. I'd be happy to read it. Or if you have any questions, I'll do my best to answer it. So just starting in with the last time we saw this, which was 6.3. So that was roughly here, 213. That matches our chart. Since then, it's continued to go up. There was a couple weeks where it pulled back slightly, but overall it went from 213 all the way up to 274. Had a high of 284 also. So overall, this one's done well. We could have bought this one and it would have been great. But we did not buy this one. We felt like, yeah, it's fair value. I guess we just felt there were going to be other opportunities to buy different stocks, and that's why we held off. So let's just address some of the notes. So we said the slight uptrend for the past 5 months. We're referring to about January of 2023. I'm still comfortable leaving that in. I'm just going to update it to show slight uptrend for the past. I guess the proper thing to do would be 6 months because it's January through early July. We'll just keep it at 6 months. Starting in January of 2023. Slight uptrend for 6 months. Okay. We also note this consolidating for the past 4 months. I believe the range that we were referring to is about 207, and I can just draw these in. I'm surprised these aren't in here right now, but this is more or less what I'm assuming we were seeing last time. Is this type of consolidation window right around here, and that's fairly parallel. I can make this a different color. I'm most likely just going to delete these lines after, but I want to make sure that we're all on the same page. So hopefully that's popping on your screen. These like goldish lines, so it was consolidating for about from beginning of January or February through right around the last time we saw this. So it was definitely consolidating between this window of about 208 and 163. So in that range, it came through the bottom, touched that top, down, up, down, It did that cycle a couple times. Ultimately, it did break that consolidation, so I'm gonna delete these gold lines in here, and I'm also going to delete that from our tracker spreadsheet. Buy the dips, I'm still okay with that, considering this uptrend that we have. May have broken the uptrend. I believe I wrote that in. I think I must have left that in from possibly the May video, because clearly I'm referring to this piece, how it broke below, but we left it in because even though it was so it was just a small margin, so I felt if it continues, yes, that would have been confirmed, uh, but it didn't, and so we can delete that because if anything, it's on the high side now. So let's remove that. And then the decreasing profit margin, that's still a thing. Probably will be for the rest of the year, I would imagine. So okay, let's take a step back again. So on June 3rd, it was trading at 213. So that was here. It's gone pretty much straight up since. Not only is it at the top of the range, it is exceeding the range. So that's one strike against it. In my opinion, I'm not looking to buy this one at this price. It's got to pull back to at least within that uptrend range before I would consider it. I think it's just being overpriced right now. Uh, the buy point that I would consider this one at this time would probably be, well, the bottom of the range is about 210. So I guess let me update where it is today, 274. The buy points that I'm looking at, again, 211. Is that right? About 211, and that's looking into next week. So 211. What else do we have? Possibly. I'm just zooming out a little bit. So some of the other lines we have in here are these horizontal lines. We have this green down here at the bottom at about 187. That seemed to be pretty decent support there. Clearly it's dipped below that, but normally it would bounce right back within a couple weeks. We also have this first, we have two sets of blue lines. The lower blue line is also like a intermediary support line where it's kind of tested that line at around 219, 220 a couple times. Enough that I felt, let's just throw it in there. Then we have this 254 point where similarly to the 220 line, we see a little bit of resistance there. We have this 1 point here. Here's 2 or 3 times where it just couldn't get above it. And then most recently, we could argue that in like mid-June, it was hovering around that point. Ultimately, it went through. I do think it's going to pull back over the next week or two. Again, just based on the trend lines here. And so that's why that's marked. And then ultimately, we have this red line at 298, which a lot of resistance there. I mean, here was one back in late 2020, early 21, where it surged up to about 300 and it just couldn't get over it. And then more recently in September, August, September of 22, again, it dipped back below, tried to get above, couldn't do it. Technically, we could probably argue that there's some sort of downtrend still in effect here, going back to like November of 2021, because we have this high up here. Here's a lower high, and right here, I'm arguing that this one's ultimately this little uptrend that we're in. I think that's going to be the more dominant one, but we technically could, and I'll draw this in just for fun. We could argue that this is kind of the. Okay, it looks like it actually has broken it, at least on a very straight line basis. Uh, okay, it's not as close as I thought. It's still pretty close. This would be the peaks, and yeah, of course, it's not always going to be perfect. Uh, so we'll see, but I am going to remove that because I don't think it's really. I don't think that's the trend, but it's just something worth noting. Uh, so again, going back to the buy points, so I chose 211 because that would be the bottom of the purple uptrend. So that would be the ideal dip, and that would be for next week. As time passes, that 211. So say like 2 or 3 weeks go by, and we're still in this uptrend channel. 211 would just naturally turn into 223 over the next couple of weeks, and it would gradually do that and continue to do that as long as the uptrend's in place. We also had 186. That was our green line. Uh, that might be off the table, at least in the short term. The other point would be maybe like 219. That is the lower of the blue lines. I would pick that one. So I will add in 219. I think based on where this one's priced at now and where I think it's heading, of course, factoring in the trend line, me, I would be okay picking this one up at 219. Again, that would be near the bottom of the purple uptrend and also at some support. If it ultimately broke through 219 and continued to pull back, I would probably wait till 186, but I would hopefully just pick some up along the way. So I made 219 the bold buy point, and I'll share this at the very end. So resistance for this one, we had 213 marked, and 213, if I just look back, I don't know why I chose 213. 213. That's an odd one. Um, let's see. Why was that chosen? Okay, I think why that was written in there is because if we think back to the little consolidation period that we had, we were hitting peaks here at about 213. Here's a second time at 213, and then on that date we were right at 213. So I thought that one could be a thing, and it's very close to that 220 is more support than resistance, but so I understand why 213 was there. I'm going to take that one out. The 298, the red line, that is still, I think it's going to struggle there. Of course, we'll see if the uptrend continues. It shouldn't be a problem when, say, by the end of the year. But if we get there sooner than that, uh, uh, we would really have to see some like good news for that to kind of happen and for me to feel confident in it. But we'll see. So 298, I'm firm with that one. I guess that's pretty much it. Some other points would be like 263. That's the top of the range. Um, we also had 254. We saw it kind of stall out around 254. I think it's going to pull back to around that area in the next week or two. We'll see. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to throw in the other resistance points. So I'm going to put in 254 based on the uptrend. The top of the uptrend right now would be about 263. So I'm going to put in 263 because we did a similar thing for the buy points. So I'm going to do that for the resistance. And then resistance at 298, based on where it is right now, that's clearly a more impactful number for us tracking this. So I'm making that one bold. Any other notes that I can think of? So the slight uptrend, that's still a thing. Buy dips, I'm still comfortable with that. Uh, I guess if I wanted to, that's pretty much it. So these boxes that we have here, this is, those are basically just estimations, and it's very difficult when there's not much news to share. And just going off technicals, if I had to, I'm going to pull this one up to include more of the uptrend. We missed this one pretty badly, I would say. We thought it would probably be around like 210. It turned out to be about 250. Not terrible, but I thought it kind of. I was trying to gauge it based on the consolidation period and also the uptrend, so I tried to get a happy medium there. But it seems like this uptrend is intact, so I just shifted this one up. We'll see if this comes out to be true. Otherwise, that one might get shifted up too. But yeah, that pretty much wraps this up. So let's just share the recap. In terms of this one, I'm going to change this one to red. I'm not looking to add this one at this price. Hopefully this can be red. I'm trying to make it as big as possible staying on the screen. But so here we have Tesla. So right now it's trading at 274. The buy point that I'm looking for is about 220, 219 to be exact. If it pulled back lower, yeah, I mean 186 would be like the ultimate, but 219 I think is reasonable, and I'd be willing to pick it up there for sure. Resistance, we've already passed through a couple resistance points. We have 254. That one's not a strong one, so maybe what I can do is make it italicized, just so we know it's probably, it's not super easy to see that, but 254, it was just some resistance there. Again, I didn't think it was going to be a strong point, but I figured it might kind of stall out there, and it kind of did. But we'll leave it in there just because. 263, that represents the top of the range, so we're above that. So that's another reason why it's being marked red. And then 298, I think that's where it's going to truly kind of probably get rejected. And we're getting kind of close to that. We're definitely closer to that point than any of our buy points. So for all those reasons, that's why I'm going to kind of stay away from this. Of course, keep tabs on it, but I'm not looking to buy it probably this week at all, unless it pulled back a lot. So yeah, that wraps it up. If you have any comments, questions, feel free to do so in the comments. I'd be happy to read it. Otherwise, please like, subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one.